There we go. Took forever and a day. Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing, show number 108. And with us in my lower right-hand screen is Saar from B4 Check-In. Now, Saar, I am not going to abuse your last name, although I think it's an exceptionally cool name. What is the best and proper way to say your last name?
Farikant.
Farikant. Okay, I would not have said that. Thank God I didn't say what I thought I was going to say.
I've done a lot of variations over the years. It's quite all right.
I can imagine you went through school kind of interesting with it. But yeah, I was just going to say, if you're a Game of Thrones lover, that is just a perfect name for character out of Game of Thrones. Saar, very good. From the land of B4 Check-In.
Well, you only have one more season to make some bank on that after that.
Yeah. Just don't turn into one of the lead characters because they have a tendency to have a short lifespan, is what I understand. But speaking of which, with us also, I'm sorry for not introducing our other co-host for today, we have Mr. Robert Cole from Rock Cheetah, and we have Mr. Stuart Butler from Fuel Travel, who I also know we have a little bit of limited time for. And Saar, to that point also, we have the pleasure of your company for just under an hour.
Yes.
And so we want to make sure we exploit all of the chances to speak with you. I know that probably jumping in on us sometime in the process of all this will be Edward StOnge from Flip2, hopefully, and Mr. Tim Peter as well, and Mrs. Holly Zoba on and off, depending upon how many windows we have open. But to that end, I would love to go over and just hand it over to you to talk a little bit, or a lot actually, about B4 Check-In and yourself, and a little bit of what it is that you and B4 Check-In do.
Well, thank you very much for having me on the show. It's great. Ed has said many great things. And I've known Ed for about, it's got to be going on 8-9 years now. Which,
wow.
Positive or negative, depends how you look at it.
We're sorry. We would apologize for that, but yeah.
He's not here to defend himself, so I'll give him one just in case.
Oh, yeah. No, that's all good.
No, we have a policy if someone's not there to defend themselves, and we just go for it because
it's open season.
It encourages them to participate.
Blame it on the dead guy, right? I've been in the hospitality industry from a technologies background since 2001. My background is software design. I've started B4 Check-In. We currently provide a suite of products, software as a service model to the hotel industry. And my introduction to the hospitality industry has been project management of various PMSs in hotels here in Eastern Canada. I'm based out of, our company is based out of Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Great town.
When first little while we go to high tech and people be like, so it's been interesting growing out of here. My career background in the PMS world was mostly overseeing project installations of Opera and Agilysys's PMS, and over time into the Infor world as well. And what we had identified, it was in the early to mid 2000s, is while independent hotels are investing heavily in all these software applications, like PMSs, accounting, and things like those, they end up going third-partying for other software that the PMS really should have provided them as part of the offering. And at the time, namely, it was online reservations. There was this cool, shiny new application called Expedia back in the day. They seem to have caught on. TravelClick and Synexis, it was their heyday. But it seemed that the big players in the PMS market were still, there were great PMSs, but for all intents and purposes, their players always end up going third parties for reservation. So we understood that there's a niche for the integration that the PMS product can provide at a functionality level that third parties can provide, with a combination of a price point that the owner is eventually willing to write the check for. So that was our introduction to the hospitality world, in a sense of, okay, we've identified a product that there's probably a niche for, and that's how we got started. We've developed a booking engine in 2004 around one specific PMS, which was Agilysys offering. Since then, they have gone to resold that product along with every other product we created along the way. And of course, started interfacing to the other top five you'd expect: Opera, the N4, Epitome, Springer Miller, and those. And over time, as our product offering grew, again, pick on Ed that's not here. In fact, he's given me the best advice I've ever gotten in my career in the hospitality industry. He's like, congratulations, you have the best booking engine. You're the smartest dumb person. Which was fantastic over time as booking engines became a commodity. So what we realized is it's not so much the booking engine that was becoming successful, and we've done very well and continue to do very well with it. We've identified that in the PMS world, there's a lot of gaps in the product line. So there's still today a lot of third-party companies that thrive quite heavily on either A, what the PMS won't or can't do, and B, don't do well. So for all intents and purposes, if the hotel likes it, we love it. So we've spent a lot of time working with hotel users and truly understanding their day, and then taking a look at our own integration with the PMSs. And from our perspective, we're always about, forgiveness is a lot easier to get than permission. So most of our integrations into the PMS have kind of been off the beaten path, but it was never by our idea or request. We'd always have a powerhouse customer of the PMS looking for functionality or a product or something to help make their day a little better. As Kevin Costner once heard, if you build it, they will come. That's kind of what we've done. That was kind of our business model when we started out. So over time, that was our product offering that grew. So we basically complement the PMS experience regardless of what PMS it is. And when the big elephant in the room that was Opera got sold to an even larger elephant called Oracle, that once again changed the game for everybody as well. So over the past year and a half or so, which is currently the focus of our company today, we were approached with a novel concept by one of our large customers, actually in Orlando, where Ed is based. They had an age-old industry problem called the credit card authorization form. Mm-hmm. It's a perfect example of how the PMS companies don't pay attention to an operational need of the property. So as it was explained to us at the time, we're seeing a group of hotels that have a lot of conference meeting space, and they're facilitating third-party deposits for the most part. So everybody here is a traveler. At some point in time, we've all seen that credit card form for the hotel, whether I want to pay for my mom to stay there, I want to send a bottle of champagne to my friends that are staying there, I'm getting married or having an event at the hotel, so after signing the contract, you got to put that deposit on the group, buy a gift card, I want to book my seats to Mother's Day brunch at the restaurant, all those various use cases that in order to facilitate a deposit, the hotel had to send a piece of paper by fax or email to their customer. And their customer would fill out that form, send it back to the hotel. It still continues to be an operational nightmare considering north of 95% of the hotels on the planet still operate that way, which is mind-boggling. Over the last few years, as what started out as a buzzword called PCI compliance, which, the director of the IT at the hotel see it as, oh my God, it's something we need to solve today, and the owners see it just costs money for something that doesn't really impact my day. Sure, it impacts your day if you get hacked and you start getting that $200 a card type fine. But that's why the PMS have been chasing PCI compliance. So everybody's been chasing PCI compliance, forgetting about the res department at the hotel that faxes and emails credit card forms 10 times a day. So aside from the fact it was a non-compliant process, it's also very labor intensive, as we've come to learn. I can't make out the handwriting, the card is declined. Chargebacks was a huge issue. So, and it's very simple use cases. I'm putting my deposit down on the wedding at this whatever hotel, and I go and have my conference or event there. I have a horrible experience. I decide to pick a fight with the hotel and dispute the charge on my deposit. So chargebacks were a huge issue as part of that process. So it seemed to be an area that nobody was paying attention to. There was not a company out there that was doing something as simple as solving that business need. And when you think of it, the start point of solving that issue is creating an e-commerce page on the hotel website that simply facilitates a payment online. no different than if a hotel was selling a robe online or something like that. That is the start of the process. At the end of the day, it's also, from an operational perspective, is where does that payment reside? So if you send that credit card form to the hotel, what do they do with it? They manually punch it into the PMS or into their accounting system or into that dummy credit card terminal sitting on that desk. And eventually that payment is posted somewhere. In most PMSs, it's in their accounting/ledger, or they have third-party accounting, like Great Plains and all those good stuff. So what we had found, it wasn't only about facilitating the payment and eliminating that form, it's also saving all the back and forth and labor inefficiencies at the property level. So what we had done is we started out creating a custom interface to the property management system that is reselling us, being Agilysys, to their property management system. Big ones being Visual One and Lodging Management System, LMS. And that just took off like wildfire. In less than a year, we've gotten a very good percentage of the customer base with Visual One, and these days we're installing close to 25% of the hotels on the Vegas Strip, simply because they use LMS. So all that being said, Oracle is still today the largest provider of hospitality software. Hello, Edward.
Hey.
You're finally here to defend yourself.
Yeah, he's been being. Sorry, just to make sure you also, Mr. Tim Peter joined us earlier from Tim Peter Associates. Just so you know, all the casting here that you're facing on the screen.
And we are getting an echo. We're getting an echo from you, Lauren, I believe.
Well, let's see if I can fix that.
And Ed, we are all shocked at the stories that Saar has been telling us about you. It was very, very unfortunate that you were late.
I've known Saar for too long.
Yes.
It's public domain. I can publish some websites where you can read the stories for yourself.
That's timpeter.com/blog.
timpeter.com/Ed is a, never mind.
Ed, I was earlier telling the story where the best business advice I've gotten in my B4 checking career came from you, where you convinced me with having the best booking engine.
When I told you not to be a
booking engine is just the worst idea ever. So I was just basically telling Lauren and the group of our, the EasyPost product that eliminates a basic business need of eliminating the credit card authorization form. So we've had enormous success in the Agilysys marketplace, but we realized the end game was eventually to go to other PMSs, the biggest one being Opera. So when you think about it, even the big brands, if you name them, you'll know that the business practice is today still sending and faxing credit card forms. The Marriotts, the IHG, the Hyatts, they all still do that to some degree. They can afford to spend more manual processes around that fax, secure fax, and what happens with it, but it's still a very labor-intensive process. But we are now pleased to report that it was actually during the week of High Tech, middle of June, we were certified with Oracle for a custom interface that actually we are now the only game in town that can post right into Opera third-party deposits.
Wow.
So this is very fresh for us, and we're just basically starting to develop, our strategy for attacking this very large marketplace.
That's exciting.
So
That's great.
And then it's extremely exciting for us, given that the fact that it's not a small mountain to move to get an interface approved by Oracle these days, as every third party would know. In fact, even some of the brands we're already talking to have said they've approached Oracle on that very subject, and it's just very, very difficult to move.
Well, just a fast question, have you been able to develop some benchmarks on either labor cost savings or savings and chargebacks and things like that based on
Absolutely. We have
a percentage of deposit volume or something like that? Because I would think you could just...
So we've developed some case study over the last 18 months of some fairly large hotels. So we have some matrix as far as how many full-time employees are now redirected to do something else based on the volume. But there's been efficiencies that we've never even considered as part of this process. So when you think about that credit card authorization form, when you fax it or email it to the hotel, and they manually take that number of that credit card number and punch it into the PMS to facilitate that deposit. First of all, from a processing point of view, it's a card not present transaction on a lodging mid. Inside the PMSs, it's a lodging mid. Yeah. We do it as a true e-commerce transaction, which right there from the acquirer and the interchange rate, there are virtually 15 to 20% savings on the exact same transaction.
Yep.
It's no different than if you wanted to buy a robe from the hotel. If you faxed them the credit card number or bought it online, it's an e-commerce transaction versus a non-e-commerce transaction.
Yeah.
And the other side of that is, Amazon started this trend of online transactions is address verification services.
Yep.
So when you punch a number into the PMS, it's truly hard to you're not sending the address to whatever processor you're facilitating that transaction. When we're doing it online, we're able to take advantage of the address verification services. So it's not just having the card number. And that's for the most part, including an electronic signature capture that we do online. To that effect, we were able to virtually eliminate chargebacks. Now, when we say eliminate, it doesn't eliminate the disputes. A hotel, customer may still initiate a dispute saying, I disagree with that charge online. It's kind of hard to dispute, whatever you bought on Amazon if you bought it, because, the moment your address is verified, you were involved in the transaction as an online e-commerce user. So 10 times out of 10, the hotel will win the dispute with the credit card company. As such, effectively eliminating chargebacks. So there's just been numerous advantages that we didn't even conceive or thought of, or was even the purpose of creating this product. It's just the bigger the use is right now. We can safely say now one of our biggest metrics is in the last 17 months, we've processed north of $100 million in transactions for our clients, and not a single hotel lost a dispute.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's one of our calling cards. So that's really the focus of, to Ed's point, you can be in the commodity business or you can be in the niche business. So we were able to identify, working closely with the PMSs, what are those gaps in the product line, and trying to answer those gaps with SaaS products. Especially where most of the PMSs are all going to / trying to go to the cloud. Some successfully, some less so, some a lot less so. So it's still a while. It seems that from our experience being, this industry that we know and love, it's just not that great at being at the bleeding edge of technology. So, moving that 800-pound gorilla, being a PMS, into the cloud is no small undertaking, because you're always going to be as strong as your weakest link. Weakest link is still the very, antiquated / old technology at the hotel level itself, be it the phone switches that the owner did not invest in replacing from the last 30 years or whatever it is. So we see that the cloud, while it's coming, it's still a whiles away for the full service downtown class A and B cities hotels. And we're working with those cloud providers now as well. So to that effect, we continue to look for opportunities in, delivering products that at the end of the day solve the problem of the person at the hotel, be it at the housekeeping department, be it at the sales department, be it at the accounting department. Because at the end of the day, no PMS is stronger than its users. So if the users love it, we'll typically get them to fight our vendor wars for us with their PMS. So it served us pretty well. So that's in a nutshell what we're about. We have about 15 products. They range from, like I said, the online reservation system to eliminating that credit card authorization form. And one of our most recent that we've done as a proof of concept, now it's taking off as a product. Again, something that not a lot of people were paying attention to is the tribal gaming industry, market segment. Casino operations at a hotel. So if you go to Vegas, which we're all used to going, and you're playing cards or playing whatever game that casino offers, We all have about 5 or 6 cards from different casinos. We've all stayed there. And when we want to go and, we can go to the hotel website, be it whatever brand in Vegas, they have elaborate systems that you can put your player number in and kind of get your offerings. You're entitled to a free buffet lunch, you're entitled to a comp night, all those good stuff. But even they have yet to reconcile and connect the dots from what you're entitled to facilitating the reservation.
Right.
So if you're entitled to a round of golf, why can't you book that? If you're entitled to a discounted rate at the room or a comp room, why can't you book that?
Right.
So one of the things we've recently launched is an integration to a couple of the leading casino management systems, where with our hotel booking engine, our golf booking engine, and our spa booking engine, we can actually connect all the dots for the hotel's customer to truly create a unified online experience based on what they want to do to interact with the hotel. And that seemed to be a niche in the ever-growing tribal gaming space outside of Vegas. Because the casino management systems that are typically used in Vegas, they're also used in all the tribal gaming properties all over the US, in fact, worldwide. So the same system that is used to track the player at the Venetian in Vegas is also used to track in Macau at the Hard Rock over there. So there's only a handful of the casino management system, essentially the casino PMSs, that are global leaders in this space. And to them, they're just warming up to these concept of APIs and letting other vendors integrate with them, which is great. But again, we were trying to find what is the next thing, and that appeared to be the way to go for us after we were done with the credit card authorization forms. So we're always looking to try, and again, from that perspective, that product, from the hotel's perspective, they no longer have to facilitate all the comp reservations by phone. The user can now do it online. We're up till now, if I wanted to redeem my comp room, because I'm living at the casino half my life, I have to call in and talk to the hotel res agent to get that comp room. So we're our job is essentially connecting the dots between the hotel's operations and the software that answers those needs.
So what do you call yourself? And we have an echo.
Well, the company's called.
We always blame Lauren for the echo.
Oh, well, it's easy to blame somebody. Our company's name is Before Check-In. The products are called respectively. We all think they're trying to come up with other B4 names. So for the casino product, it's Before You Bet. Yeah. For the product that eliminates the credit card authorization for, we call it B4youbet because it's all about posting in the PMS. For our mobile housekeeping solution, we call it Before Clean. So it's about, when you think about it, there's no affordable, low-level housekeeping solution out there that, hotels, if they have to go to a third party, they can get into a Cadillac or nothing at all. Where if you were approaching it from a PMS perspective, if you as a PMS developed functionality for what the user actually needs, what would it be? So the Cadillac costs what the Cadillac costs. So we're trying to come up with comparable products just in lighter forms that are more digestible to the hotels. In fact, where we see things going, that's why I mentioned the cloud environment for the PMS. One customer recently verbalized extremely well all of our fears. All of a sudden now, everybody's standing there with their hand out for X amount of dollars per room per month for your product, Mr. Vendor. Mr. Vendor starts with a PMS, and then, 3 to 10 vendors lined up right behind them for all the software products that they need. So that problem is probably going to rear its ugly head over the next few years. So I suspect there's probably going to be a trend of consolidation. And I think we see that now. I mean, I thought the purchase of Micros by Oracle is probably the spring of this consolidation. I think we'll see more and more of those large companies swallowing up an array of solution providers in order to, you only have to write one check. It's still per room per month, but you'll get all these solutions. Right. So that's that's kind of where we see things
so
going.
how do you describe yourself as a category then? It's you aren't a CRS, you're not a book, you're
So we're essentially
is there a description for this?
the way we describe ourselves is we're basically the add-on to your PMS. So one of our taglines in our marketing collateral is we supercharge your PMS.
Right.
It's hard to kind of describe what the PMSs don't do well. We just describe what we do well from inside the PMS. So instead of building products and figuring out how to get them into the PMS, we kind of go from the PMS outwards.
Right.
So that's what we had found to have the most success. So while everybody's kind of going in from the other way around, okay, so we have this HTNG and OTA standard, and here's what we can do. Oftentimes, the end result to affect the person's needs at the hotel level is missed because of this limitations of the standard. At the end of the day, the hotel chooses a PMS because of the feature and functionalities that they were sold on that makes that hotel's employee and the hotel's guest day a little easier and experience a little easier. So that's why we see ourselves as a complement of the PMS.
That's great.
First off, compliment that you're approaching it from a baseline. Question: do you see PMS as being the core that everything's going to be based off of, that's the main go-to, or do you think that systems like CRM systems or web management systems are going to be the takeover to it? Like you're facilitating this amazing communication capability and identification ability of users. Is that where you think the PMS is going to become? Is going to branch and become what it should have been from the very beginning, the all-encompassing core authoritative data source for everything?
That's an excellent question. In fact, I'd go a step further, and you may see it in the marketplace already by some of the recent acquisitions. Why just stop at the CRS? Revenue management. You have all these large-scale revenue management companies out there that are now being swallowed by, look at Ideas, Newmarket, those that are swallowing CRM companies, that are swallowing revenue management companies. I believe eventually, like I said, you have companies like Oracle that bought Micros. I think you'll have those very large companies buying all these other solutions providers. A PMS is just a piece of the pie. Salesforce is probably the best CRM out there. Some PMSs have a very open and great integration into Salesforce. But there's no one unified solution by the PMS. Why is it? Some PMSs try to write their own. If you look at the top 5 PMSs out there and look at their CRM solutions, build or buy.
Solutions.
Definitely an air quotable statement.
Check box.
Yeah. So
what is the antonym of a solution?
I believe so, Lauren. I believe the trend that we feel started by Oracle, I think they're going to be swallowing up all these companies under one umbrella to provide a comprehensive solution that the hotel needs, because the needs of the hotel don't stop at a PMS system.
Right.
It's a CRM, it's a revenue management, it's a CRS, it's a food and beverage.
Well, and Oracle already has, because of Micros, the POS too, which was the logical. A big portion of why that deal got done. So
we're involved with PMSs that they say that even though they have a POS system, they have better integration to other POS systems. So they sell their PMS with a third party. It's completely disjointed. So I do think there will be, our feeling is there's going to be a consolidation phase in the industry.
There badly needs to be one.
Yes.
It has to be.
Yeah.
We talked about it before.
There is one that badly. Oh wait, no, that's a different thing.
There have been plenty that have been done badly. Now we need some good ones.
They're all operating in their silos. I mean, you have your PMS builders, you have your CRMs, your CRSs, everybody's doing this umbrella stuff, and they don't allow the connectivity because they think they're eventually going to build into it. So there's these walled gardens of everything, and it's just so frustrating to jigsaw puzzle a piece together for a property that's just trying to look for functionality from A to Z on engaging with the guest, being able to collaborate with the guest, pay with the guest, monitor the guest, and communicate with the guest. And there's bridges that aren't built yet, and that's why it's so phenomenal what you're doing, because you're actually creating these transcending bridges at the most core level, which is from the property transaction level. With that said, are you worried that you're only opening the doorway for an Oracle to come in and say, thanks for showing us the way, we're going to take it from here, where you've given them the ability to realize the value proposition of it, and then they're just going to say, great, close the door, we're going to have our own strategy. Because so many PMS systems have allowed for user experiences to be enhanced by an outside party, and then all of a sudden they close the door and think they're going to build a replacement, and they fall far short of what the original product was doing, and then they're left with this crappy internalized product. I mean, is that a concern for you?
Listen, I'll speak for Saar so they know that it's not Saar saying this because it's his business model. I mean, really what Saar has created is an application service layer to allow many things to connect to the data systems, and with data conversion. The PMSs know how to do that. They've known how to do it for years.
And we believe that they're not in the distribution business. At the end of the day, they're in the checking in, checking out business.
Yep.
Yep.
Because it's not as simple, Lauren. It's not as simple as just building the data transfer. Right. I mean, all the challenge is in data conversion. How does Micros handle data elements versus how Agilysys handles it versus how someone else handles it? And interestingly enough, like the new breed of channel managers are all starting to get bitten by realizing that they should have built in middleware to do data conversion, because now they're having challenges expanding their offerings and what they do. And also they're just having challenges in simplifying their UIs to the hotels because they can't do data conversion. Right. And that's where the magic sauce is in being able to take one language, if you will, we'll call them languages, and have it be able to in real time translate to another language, and also know how to handle just complete data differences. Sometimes that is just algorithms you have to build to say, this is how you do this to turn what is an object that this one database doesn't even have room for into something it does have room for that's relatively close to the business model. Right. That's where the complexity is. That's where the value is. The PMSs have known how to do it forever, but also just because of who they are, they don't see value in doing that. They're going to say, well, listen, this is how we do it. We're the core system. So if you want to do
everyone
it,
else should adapt to us. Right.
We'll build it for you as a custom add-on.
Right.
It'll only take 4 years. It'll cost a few $100,000.
And then we'll resell it to everybody else for 5 times more. And then
we'll outsource it to a company like SARS.
You're giving away all our secrets.
No, I mean, this is the smartest thing I thought Saar did with his business, was really look at why things aren't happening, why some of these very simple solutions. Like, I love the easy post stuff that he's doing, because that is like the most basic of a solution that's incredibly challenging to do, because you have to understand all the idiosyncrasies of everything you're linking up. And to be able to pull that together, especially across multiple PMSs, to be able to do it for more than one. It's one thing to be able to do it for one. It's another to be able to do the same exact thing for a completely different code base. Like, it's impressive.
And we continually get shocked when we come across, a large customer that all of a sudden doesn't have a solution from their, array of software providers to accomplish one of their basic business needs. To give you a basic example, we've built a golf booking engine because Pinehurst in North Carolina cannot book rounds of golf online.
Now that's true. Yeah, spas were like that too. Spas were like that too. It's like they had this exclusivity, like, no, you can't build. It's like, you need the functionality. You need online bookability. What the hell is your problem? Oh, no, they need to call.
And there's third-party OTA-like golf reservation systems that don't talk to the golf management system.
Nope. Yep.
So it's
or they are the golf management system. That's been around for a long time.
Then they don't talk to the PMS or the accounting system. So
any hotelier who complains about the OTAs should take a little trip down to the golf course.
Or the spa. Spa is just as bad.
No, golf.
No, but he's talking about business model. Golf's business model is.
Okay.
You want to talk about it? You want to talk about an industry that has accepted a way of doing business that's really bad for them? It's the golf industry and their barter system, which they asked for.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the courses who asked for barter, and it has now bitten them just so hard.
You hit the nail on the head. Those OTAs, they get paid in comp rounds of golf that they can go and sell
for whatever amount they want.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's free. Yeah. You don't pay.
Yeah.
Lauren, to get back to your high-level question, we see it. All of this will need to be consolidated in order to truly provide a one-stop solution to a property based on their needs. The trick is really going to be, does the business sustain consolidating all these solutions and still charging whatever the PMS currently charges per dollar per room per month?
Right.
You know, those companies that would be buying these solutions have shareholders to account for as well. It's one thing to buy a company for all kinds of millions of dollars and charge $3 a room a month.
So unless Amazon decides to buy all the core systems, there's not going to be another company that is going to raise capital that will be able to do what actually needs to be done.
Right.
So, Saar, just out of curiosity, so how do you price your system? I mean, conceptually, right? Like, you don't have to be specific about dollars.
Yeah, conceptually,
but what's the pricing model look like?
All of our products are flat monthly fee per month, depending on the size of the hotel.
Okay.
Because we came in at a time that everybody's, like you said, it's a status quo at the golf resorts. It's been a status quo at hotels up until a couple of years ago that they're used to paying a percentage of the revenue or a dollar amount for that reservation. They're just used to it, so why not? So we've always approached it from day one as a flat monthly fee, regardless of how many transactions go through it. And Lauren, to your earlier questions, to wrap up that point as well, is why don't the PMSs build it? Because for a large publicly traded company, PMS, to build a product that's already in the marketplace for, call it a couple $100 a month, they'll never see the ROI on it. And the product would not be as well. It won't be as robust. It won't have the business intelligence in it. It will have the product that their own customers that requested it have that kind of intelligence in it.
Right, and the brands won't spend it because they don't have the revenue streams to do it. They don't want to expend the technical resources, even though it can help all their owners. And
but see, that's the thing. It only helps their owners.
Right.
There's not enough money in it for them.
Right.
There's not enough upside in it for them, and it's not a problem that falls into a spot that stops them from being able to sell more franchises.
Right. Well, it's not. I mean, that's exactly right. It is not specifically seen as a value add. Whether or not it is besides the point. It's not seen as a value add on the franchise.
It's hugely valuable to whoever is paying the people to operate the hotel. That budget line item is coming out, like whoever's paying for that budget line item is who will find these types of solutions very attractive. That's not the brand.
Right.
And at the end of the day, we come from a place where we feel we'll dive even deeper on who makes that decision. To us, if we'll pick on the golf reservation system for a second, the decision maker is not the owner of the golf course. The decision maker is whoever runs that golf pro shop.
Right.
He screams for it loud enough, the owner will write whatever check it is. Because it makes their lives a little easier. So they're the best champions and salespeople of these types of
but then it also, in that case too, is also the rub of it, because those people are also heavily influenced by the intrinsic values of some relationships as to maintaining status quo or providing as a relationship with another service provider that is not to the overall operation benefit, but to the benefit of the operation. Does that make reverse sense?
Well, listen, I'll tell you what, in golf, one thing I will tell you is status quo is not something we're seeing at these courses. They're all panicked because golf is shrinking.
Well, right. Golf has an existential problem at the moment.
Yeah, and they're all aware of it, so they're all looking at what's going on, and status quo is not what they're looking at. Anyone who's looking at status quo, it's because they're just waiting for their county to approve them rezoning the golf course so they can build homes on it. Right. But anyone who's still looking to operate a golf course is really looking at how do they recreate their model and and how do they get new consumers, because the millennials and the Gen Xers didn't pick up golf. at the same pace that the baby boomers did.
Ski has the same problem.
Yeah.
I mean, ski.
Yeah, but ski is nowhere near as threatened as golf.
No, but
because you can't overbuild ski. There's only so many mountains. They've overbuilt golf.
No, that's part of it. But one of the biggest issues, I did a big project with the National Golf Course Owners Association a couple of years back, and one of the big challenges for golf specifically is, for lots of reasons that we don't need to get into here by any stretch, is it is not seen as welcoming to families. It's not seen as welcoming to women. It is not seen as welcoming to minorities. And so it has this challenge of attracting new folks, and it's incredibly time consuming. So if you think
it's really hard.
Well, yeah, that's
and
absolutely true. But if you think about
but
skiing is expensive too. But
skiing
you can take your
hard.
wife and kids with.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So and unlike golf, skiing, you can put a 3-year-old on a mountain with no poles, and they are going to be the best skier going down that hill.
That's exactly right.
Because skiing, the reason you're bad at skiing, if you're bad at skiing, is because you're afraid of dying.
That's right. No, that's
you don't
exactly
end up as a Denver omelet by the end of the day.
Right. But golf is incredibly frustrating for young people because it's full of failure before success.
That's right.
And it's
actually, it's frustrating for old people too, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, but listen, you get to an age, at least, where you realize every game you play, you will have that one swing that just lined up perfect, made the right sound, and that's what keeps you coming back.
Ed, you're younger than I am. See, I thought you were going to say once you hit a certain age, you realize that failure is inevitable.
I was trying to not speak for the three of you.
No, but
on here.
But one of the real issues that golf has and has had for some time is, historically, if you think about golf, this is both perception and some reality. Was Dad went away for 3 or 4 hours on Saturday and played golf, and Mom stayed home with the kids, right? Whether that's right or wrong, that is a lot of the perception. And whereas if you go skiing, you can take your family skiing for the weekend. It is not common and not commonly accepted at a lot of courses still that the family shows up to golf. That's really their single biggest challenge by far.
So if you own a golf course, you want to start transitioning to memory care, so you can keep your client base for a few more years.
The fastest growing trend in golf are these, virtual these virtual courses, these virtual ranges and the like, where somebody can go in and they can hit a ball with a stick for an hour and then go back
behind them.
Right. And then go back to their life without being away from the family for 3, 4, 5 hours.
We're about to get our Top Golf is about to open in Orlando.
Coolest thing. It is, and the reason that they are succeeding is because they're filling a niche that golf as a sport has done a terrible job of figuring out how to draw in people to say, hey, let's make this a family friendly activity. Let's make this a welcoming activity to new customers. Yeah, golf's got some real challenges.
To your point, some hotels, it's by design. So if it's a huge conference hotel, the golf course could be wildly more popular than the spa.
Yeah, that's right.
That's why oftentimes you'll see golf and spa together. And,
and one of the other challenges with golf is if you've got a course that's owned by the local government, you're competing with someone who's set up for their business to lose money.
That's right.
It's an amenity.
That's right.
For the city.
It's an attraction. It's a tourist attraction.
And they don't care if it makes money.
The local folks who live around it.
That's not fun to compete with.
And Robert brought up an excellent point of skiing. When you think about it now from a hotel's operation perspective, whether it's golf, a service at a spa, or skiing, it's an activity. So when you take a piece of software that has to answer that need of the property, you can go to, pick a place in Colorado, Copper Mountain. You ski in the winter, you zip line in the summer. There's a couple of golf courses around that Vail Valley. From an operational perspective of the hotel, does it matter if they sell you and your 3 buddies a team time at 9 a.m., 4 ski lift tickets, or 4 massages? It's from an operational perspective that the software needs to answer. It's kind of one and the same. It needs to talk to the accounting system. It needs to talk to the reservation system, so it prints your itinerary. It's all those different things that at the end of the day, it's the guys on the ground that need to worry about coordinating all that stuff for their guests. That the software generally does not answer.
Well, and it's not just the tea time or just the ski pass. It's equipment rental, it's instruction, it's all the merchant. Huge opportunities to expand share of wallet, and just gap after gap after gap, and barriers to be able to.
So when we talked about earlier the consolidation, and Lauren mentioned CRMs, and I mentioned revenue management, you can optimize how much you can get for that team time at 9 a.m. tomorrow based on the occupancy of the hotel. If normally that team time's $50, but the hotel is full house with a huge banking conference, I'm sure it's going to be $80, or it should be $80, or whatever it is. If you have the conference schedule and whatnot. So that's why I believe that there's got to be a certain consolidation of all these software products.
Well, and this is the great long game that Saar's playing, because he's installing all the plumbing. And he's building little widgets on it today to have, revenue recovery. But ultimately, first of all, anyone who calls me because of my expertise, if they're talking about Agilicis, I just don't even bother guiding them. I just say, call Saar. He's who Agilicis will probably kick you to if it's complicated. Just call Saar. And they all kind of sit there at first, and they're like, well, wait, is it solvable? Oh yeah, it's solvable, but only Saar can solve it for you. And it never fails if they actually call him. A couple months later, I get wow, you were right. Wow. He really is the only one who can do that. This vendor didn't even respond to us, and they're our PMS. And
so the new tagline for B4 check-in needs to be
just call Saar.
Saar, the PMS plumber. Yeah.
If I had kids, I'd actually encourage them to be plumbers, because there's going to be less and less of them going forward.
That's right.
Tough to outsource.
So,
Lauren, we see your mouth move.
Try to keep it on mute so I don't have any background noise to it. Sorry, two questions real quick. One is, from a property's perspective, listening and listening to this process, what is the baseline that they need to come and talk to you about using the service? What do they have to have in place, or what facilities do they need to know that this is a value proposition for them?
If they're a PMS we have an integration with, typically depends on a particular version that they're on. Generally speaking, we've been doing this for a while, so anything that's been updated at the property level over the last 3 years generally will work. PMSs typically have had to update over the last few years because the PMSs have forced their properties to upgrade because of PCI compliance and EMV and all these different things that they've incorporated into, this version number XYZ, regardless of which PMS it is, you have to be on it if you want to be PCI compliant.
Right.
That's, again, feeding the monster. In recent years, PMSs also start charging for those upgrades, where before it was just kind of included in the annual maintenance fees.
So, and this is also one of the challenges that the PMSs have, is they're not getting the valuations they used to get on their licensing model. So a lot of them have been trying to figure out how to increase, how to transition to a SaaS or a subscription model. And some of them have done a good job of getting more and more subscription modeling out there, but it's a painful transition, because a lot of their budgeting, a lot of their cash flow is heavily based on hefty upfront fees, training fees, retraining fees. And so moving from a lumpy transaction like that to smoothing it out over a multi-year engagement with someone is difficult. Now, the other problem they have is I don't think they accounted for necessarily, is some hotels don't want to pay for their core technology as a SaaS model, because they generally, in their business practice, these are more single proprietor, hotel your own hotels. But when times get slow, they want to be able to shut down costs. And go to skeleton operation, and they don't want their core system to be one of those things that hurts during a time that they're outside of their control. They're just not doing business like they usually. And
not only that, but the properties are also used to, over the last 20 years, when they think PMS and the big upfront cost, they're mostly capitalizing it. So all of a sudden, moving to a SaaS model, you're now going from a CapEx to an OpEx,
Right.
which, again, getting back to Joe or Jane at the front desk, or even the GM, it affects their GOP and bonuses. And at the end of the day, they don't care what the name of the software is, they care what the bonus is and the performance. So all of a sudden, if you take it out of capital and into something that affects the GOP, that all comes into the math.
Well, and the way the hotel industry's stacked this up, everybody going asset light and all that, it's all, boy, look at this. We've got the management fees layering up as this. We've got the software. We've got the OTAs. We've got credit card fees. And
I feel that migraine coming on again.
Fees everywhere.
Oh
you get some fees. Yeah. You get some fees.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't worry, when your revenue drops, this you won't pay as much.
And man, that asset light is going to come home. Those chickens are going to come home to roost, boy.
Yeah.
I'm surprised more people aren't talking about this whole asset light movement, because it's uncovered a big problem with the brands. And you've heard me kind of ratchet it up more and more over the weeks as it's been going on. They're now just franchise systems.
Right.
And franchise systems, anyone who's smart in business knows that only one entity makes the money in franchise system.
That's right.
That's right.
Tim knows.
I know this. Sorry, I gotta check a stock price right now. I'll be with you.
Sorry, another question for this. What is the what's the calculations that a property needs to go through to determine the value proposition that before checking offers them? What numbers do they have to look at, and how do they have to evaluate what they're looking at to determine that there's a good reason to doing what you're doing?
God, Lauren, is someone asking you these questions? Because these are some of the most intelligent questions you've asked anyone who's been on our
You sent me a list. I'm just reading it. No, I'm curious as hell. I'm thinking about two of my clients right now going, what do I need to put together on a form so I can go back to them and say, we need to talk to before check-in? So I'm all thinking about this.
One of your bigger clients, this would be
impact. No kidding. Yeah. So anyway, that's why I'm
specific. For us, it's pretty well product specific, which questions we would want to ask. And the way we approach it, when we're going to meet with a client, even for the first time, it's not that hard to find out how many rooms they have. It's pretty well public domain on TripAdvisor these days. So if we'll pick on a booking engine for a sec, even it being the commodity that it is, we can extrapolate with fairly good accuracy based on looking at their website and what their current booking engine is, what they're paying for reservations. Because you make certain assumptions of their RevPAR, of their occupancy, and give or take, given their booking engine current provider, we're never off by more than 10% on what they're currently paying. So when we're going in, we already know, do we have a value proposition for this property? And if it's not financial, it's got to be something else. So for us, it's also a metric of labor efficiencies, which we use. So it's not about, even if you paid, for the sake of argument, the same monthly fee for a booking engine or for one of the other products, it's what can you do with this product that now one of your employees doesn't have to do.
But even more importantly, like for the B4youpost, Lauren, does this big client, do they have Opera or Agilicis?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, just the pure fact, the amount of, they do groups, right?
Oh.
Yeah, so you're, like, it's printing money, because Saar tested the EasyPost with a group house here in Orlando, and the numbers are sick, because you lower your transaction fees on those transactions, first of all. So just right there, the fact that you're no longer being charged as card not present craziness, there's a huge savings there. But then you add this one test that he did, which now he does it for all of their hotels. It eliminated chargebacks completely.
Right.
Right. So
it's like that's a freaking staggering number.
And then again, Lauren, that's where the plot kind of thickens. Who do you talk to? If we talk to a director of IT, all they care about is PCI compliance. He or she truly doesn't care that the credit manager at the hotel has to call the client because the credit card declined or they couldn't make out the handwriting. Right. Those are efficiencies above the director of IT's level. And if you're talking to the credit manager, they couldn't care less about PCI compliance. Right. So the ROI greatly depends on who's in the room, because there's a cost to PCI compliance. And given the size of a property and their PMS, we know what that cost is. and we can show them a dollar amount reduced based on eliminating that credit card authorization form out of their operations. It doesn't eliminate their compliance, because I don't know if they're writing credit card numbers on their cocktail napkin at the food and beverage outlet. We can't control that. But we can control how third-party deposits come in. So the ROI greatly depend on the product. It's not always on the surface financial. It's also labor efficiency. But
how about international currencies and so forth? All good?
I'm sorry?
International currency exchange values and so forth? Is there a savings value to that?
Basically, we're in about 30 or 40 different countries right now already. So we process it in the native currency of whichever hotel it is. At the end of the day, it's the PMS. What currency is in the PMS? That's what the process is.
Cool.
We're from the inside out of the PMS. That's what it comes down to.
And then just a question. So how many either properties or rooms, what kind of size are you guys?
Our smallest property that uses any of our software is probably 35 hotels. And our largest one right now is Treasure Island on the Vegas Strip, with Mohegan Sun in Connecticut being installed. They're about, Mohegan Sun's about 1,200. Treasure Island, I think, was close to 2,000. So that would be our biggest ones for this particular product.
So across all your products, though, I mean, are you in 2,000 hotels, 500 hotels? And we're getting a big.
We have about 500 hotels, but 500. The size of them ranges.
Yeah.
Simply because of the nature of the software, from our perspective, whether it's a booking engine or EasyPost, think of it in terms of, should you pay more or less, or are you taxing your ISP more or less based on the number of emails you get a day?
Right.
It costs the same to operate for the most part if you're facilitating 10 forms or 10 reservations, or 50 forms or 50 reservations a day.
Oh no, I gotta think every hotel controller should love this, basically.
Basically, when he showed it to me, I was like, holy crap, this is the most boring, interesting thing I've ever seen. Now, and that's why I love it.
Speaking
of
boring,
but incredibly interesting.
So
go ahead, Robert.
Are you exhibiting at the HFTP annual convention as opposed to High Tech? Which is the world's most boring conference.
As I mentioned earlier, we're just spun up a sales force around this particular market, which is Oracle. Before that, we sold kind of direct organically, and Agilysys resold us. But this interface to Oracle was just approved in middle of June during High Tech.
Wow.
As you all know, I'm sure from dealing with Oracle since they purchased Micros, everything takes a very long time. The technical work has been completed last November.
Oh, yeah.
We finished the actual work for them / with them last November. It took this long to get through the processes as they keep changing them and growing internally. Yeah. About a year and a half ago, we've elected a new chairman to our board, which when Micros sold to Oracle, he was Senior VP of Investor Relations and Business Development. So all the people that we had to work at Oracle to get this to happen used to work for this guy. So it certainly made things considerably friendlier. And Oracle has seen this product and then decided to approach us about it. So it just took forever to get done. In fact, we couldn't even issue a press release. It was just approved 2 days ago. And I'll send you that. And we waited for 15 to 48 business days.
Yeah. I had to get through the lawyer's gauntlet before it ever made it to that.
So we're doing the press release and just telling people it exists and out there next Thursday for the first time. On top of the fact that Oracle is already sending their big players down our way right now, simply because we're the only one.
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at the big group houses running on Opera, I mean, this is a no-brainer for a Fairmont Raffles Swiss Hotel.
Right.
This is a no-brainer for Millennium Copthorne. This is a no-brainer.
Four Seasons. Yeah. I mean, you just go down the whole. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
By the way,
so right now it's all about we're searching for the right distribution channel. I mean, when you mentioned the HFTP conference and High-Tech and other shows, you go there and you see the array of payment processors. You as a general manager or director of IT can get a headache just from trying to sort out heads from tails from what do these companies even do for your property. As far as you're concerned,
sorting through the sales pitches alone are a pain in the ass. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
And you don't even know if you can work with them, because at the end of the day, you can work with whoever your PMS is interfaced from a credit card perspective to.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So again, everybody's working from the outside in. And,
right, and they always put the smoke up. It's like, we're capable of doing this, this, and this. Yes, but are you actually plugged in? Are you allowed to be capable?
Are you currently doing that for
Yes.
this
Who are you
version
doing this with?
of this PMS hosted this way?
Right. Is anybody actually paying you for that
Yes.
product?
Is it actually functioning right now?
Well, we're currently using carrier pigeons to deliver the message, but we'll replace it with an API someday.
now I would think a small booth at that HFTP conference with just one person saying, how many rooms do you have? What's your deposit volume? We can save you this much. What do you think?
Well, actually, from a marketing perspective,
or what's your
there's a
PMS?
handful of companies that advertise they'll eliminate the credit card form. All we want to do is have a logo of all these companies and right on top. Yeah, but does it post to the PMS?
Right. Right now, I'm picturing this meme of like Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd when the orange prices went all the way down, and then all of a sudden you pause and go, and I can save you this much money. You're going to be the rock star of it.
It's actually funny. I can't tell you who, but we've had a customer in the last 4 or 5 months. He was approached by another vendor, and he switched to use this other vendor for this particular product. And I've literally, because you mentioned Trading Places, I had to give one of my employees a $5 bill this week because we bet on when he'd call us to come back. I thought he'd honestly try them for a year. It wasn't even 3 months.
Now, Saar, this is the difference between you and I. I would just call that other vendor and say, hey, do you want me to fix your problem? Because I'll do it. It's just going to cost you more than I was charging the person you took from me.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it reminded me. Trading Places, like.
Hey, sorry. By all means, I would love for you to be able to stay with us, but you had mentioned you had a hard stop, and I just don't want to get because the hour goes by so quickly, and it is we're a little bit past that point, and I didn't want to get you caught where you were missing out on something you had to run off to, but.
So I wanted to thank
Saar's
you very much for the format.
Yeah, that's true. He's not really running anywhere, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. I can handle phone calls and emails, and that's about it. You can't even hide out from employees and customers these days. You're pretty static. But thank you very much for the forum and the opportunity to showcase. I'd love to come back and partake in some of the other topics that you guys are talking about that are.
You're always
unrelated.
You are always welcome. As a matter of fact, most everybody here started out by being a guest co-host, and it's like, hey, this is kind of fun, so let's just pop in on a Friday and do a little therapeutic conversation. But yes, you're always a standing invitation. Always.
You have to remember, people actually watch this. We sometimes forget that.
I'll have to go through the Rolodex of stories about Ed and just handpick which ones I can share with you.
Just don't forget. I've been a lot of places with you too, my friend.
So that's the thing with Ed. It's like you think you have him, but he'll just one up you. It's like, oh no, you like that picture? I have a better picture.
I've got Ed has video. I found very bad.
Pictures are worth 1,000 words.
Ed never made me sign that NDA, so I can safely say whatever Ed has done, I've done 10 times worse.
Sorry, before we lose you, if people want to know more about Before Checking, where should they go? And if they want to communicate with you, if you're willing to give some communication, email or what have you.
Beforechecking.com, they have a form where they can get in touch with us. I'm certainly, I can share my email address. Lauren, I believe you have my email address and coordinates. Feel free to post it on the webinar.
Excellent.
Somewhere, but typically our website is the best place to start.
Awesome. And sincerely, as Ed pointed out, you are always welcome to join us whenever. If you'd like, we'll keep sending you the invitations until you tell us not to, so you always know the time and the link, and you can always join us.
Please do.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you just close the window on the top, rather than the off button, you should be good. If you just hit the little close the window, you should be fine, because the other one, Ed has a tendency to take us off the air when he hits the off the air, but he is the wrong button on a regular basis.
We all know that I firmly believe when I'm not in a room, everything stops existing.
Yeah. That's right.
Wait,
if you're not here,
does that mean? I have a question for you. Does that mean that you are a solipsist, or does it mean you have not yet achieved object permanence?
I've not yet achieved object permanence.
I think he was just dealing with the affirmation of quantum theory that if there is no observer, there is no reality. So if he's not in the show, there is no show. That was awesome. Ed, thank you. Great, Saar.
Pretty cool stuff, right?
That is very cool stuff. And I'm like totally stoked to chase
the most interesting, boring stuff ever.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like plumbing.
I feel like I'm in a race. I want to go talk to me before everybody delivers in with business because, I mean, you're right. Everybody's going to stand in line with this.
Well, and I've thrown some interesting projects his way just to really test kind of the edges of what their capability is. And I was able to get a client who had a unique issue. Their unique issue was they were going to flag a property that had a specific PMS in it that flag had never dealt with before, and their CRS couldn't speak to it. And I was like, oh, Saar could totally handle this. He'll basically spoof to each system like it's the system they think it is. So the CRS will be talking to what it thinks is the PMS that it's used to, and he'll just convert that to talk to the PMS in the way that the PMS needs to talk.
That's great.
And he was able to put it together. He was able to put it together. It was amazing.
That's crazy.
Well, it sounds like he's built a really good middleware layer, and now he can kind of futz with the adapters, right?
Yep,
so he's figured out Genesis, he's figured out Oracle. Most of the other systems are kind
of those
based, so have some sort of thread of heritage back to those. So
holy smokes, Stuart Butler, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, he was here before.
He was here, but then he had to duck out a half hour.
So.
Oh, see, my technical difficulties were because our video guy was syncing his terabyte hard drive to the cloud.
Mr. Stewart, welcome back, sir. Did you get rid of those pesky clients? Did you get rid of those?
You know what?
Clients?
It was one of those pesky almost clients. So
they're the worst kind.
They're the best kind. They don't stop being pesky till you get them as a client, right?
Well, we solve.
So because I'm actually getting us new viewers by doing this, I'd really, really like to talk about the Westgate lawsuit.
Oh, yes.
You were rather excited about that. You were rather
well, because here's the thing. You want to know why I was excited about it is I first got an email from them saying, hey, we're doing this finally, and I had no clue about this problem. So I started just asking some hotels, and I'm like, yeah, did you hear about Westgate suing amoma? And I got the same response from every stinking hotel. Oh, amoma, they're the worst. Oh my gosh, thank God someone's finally doing something. And there's like dozens behind them that are doing it too. And I'm sitting here like, really?
Oh yeah.
Like, why is Westgate the first one that's like standing up?
I actually have an answer to that. And it's because of the dialogue that usually happens in the room when somebody brings that to their attention. It's like a mea culpa. Once it's been identified, the people that brought it to the attention feel that they're no longer responsible for the loss factor. It's like, hey, I'm telling you where the leak is. I'm telling you where our rate issues are. I'm telling you where we're getting this lost at. And there's nobody that's actually going to carry that ball forward and say, let's go fix it. They're just like, okay, we identified it. That's it. Now we know where the problem is, or one of the problems. Let's just move on. And nobody really takes it forward after that. And this is the first one that said, no, dig your heels in, man. Let's fix this damn thing.
So for everyone who doesn't know, the lawsuit, which the link is up, alleges, because I don't want to get sued. It alleges that an operator by the name of amoma is acquiring rates that are not designed to be used for public viewing, and they're publishing them on their site, which that's happened forever. I know that. But the new game is they're leveraging Meta to have this show up as the lowest bookable rate on sites, allegedly sites like TripAdvisor, Trivago, things like that, which is deceiving consumers because unlike what I'm guessing most hotels do, they refuse to take these reservations. So now the consumer's not mad at the site.
No, they're mad at the hotel.
Right. And so, this is an interesting issue. And I actually, of course, and now I am not a lawyer, but I watch a lot of TV. And so I started just
said it all in Express.
Makes you an expert. Obviously.
I just started giving them
You
like
read
how
you read a Wikipedia article once.
Oh, he stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Yeah, I mean, because my bottom line is there is case law in other sections of the internet that you can name TripAdvisor, Trivago as accessories to this, and you file it with the European Union, because you know the European Union loves to stomp on big companies that are deceiving consumers. And they don't mind blurring the line between active deception or facilitating deception. So my recommendation to them was actually to serve everyone who is displaying this type of activity as a bookable rate, as that they're an accessory to this, and ask for a cease and desist with legal notification, because now you've notified them. You wait the 30-day remedy period that most of these will probably have. They don't do the remedy. You add them to the lawsuit. Now your problem, you don't even have to win against amoma, because you're just going to get all of them to crack down, because they do not want the European Union chiming in on this.
Right. Interesting thought.
That can be a very, very difficult path through the courts on it, because again, a lot of the agreements for TripAdvisor and these meta guys say you are authorized to sell those rates, right? Sort of thing. So they're saying it's not we have no way to know, we have no visibility into all the underlying contracts. We have to rely on the good faith of them. Now, if they're found guilty of this practice, because again, it could be frivolous, we don't know, then we'll cut it.
But here's the thing, like, even to that loophole, at the point that you serve them legal notice of the fact that you've been serving cease and desist to this operator because they do not have the right to produce that rate, and you will not accept those terms, then they actually can't just be a passive observer, because Sorry,
here's a question I have. No, it's just a question, because this is one that always baffles me, and I've been in this business for years, and it always confuses me. Right? In a case like amoma, right? Allegedly, in a case like a wholesaler, right? Because that's really the distinction. It's a distinction between a wholesaler and an agent.
Well, a bed bank, a wholesaler, a tour operator, or any of those.
Well, I mean, from a legal perspective, there's a distinction between an agent and a wholesaler, right? So an agent is not free to set prices, because an agent is not the actual merchant of record. The merchant of record is the person who owns the inventory. The wholesaler is the merchant of record. So, I think this is a great lawsuit conceptually. Whether amoma did this or
it's going to be hard as crap to go through,
right? Because the question is, if they are a wholesaler and the wholesaler has the right to set prices, right? That's where this gets really complicated.
So here's what's interesting about that. So
that becomes a price fixing
so
consideration.
Contractually, they're not the wholesaler, because they do not have a contractual relationship with
But if they're
hotels.
getting the inventory from somebody who does have the contractual relationship, that's where things get really
and one of the things I've said
to them, not a lawyer by any
one of the things I've said to them is because first of all, I've always thought, and this will probably ruffle some feathers here, the old models of tour operator and all of that, the fact that they get special rates, I've always thought was completely ridiculous that they have not been modernized. I feel the same way about corporate rates. Like, first of all, I literally just told a giant business in Orlando that I ran into last night who was like, hey, who would you recommend for corporate travel? I'm like, no one. Because corporate rates are not competitive with prevailing rates, with transparent rates. And almost never. So the couple of times that you're going into a city that city may be full, the premium you'll pay for not having a negotiated rate versus all the other times of the year that you normally get kind of jabbed with the corporate rate, it'll even out. Don't do a corporate deal. I feel the same way about
some hotels are doing not to exceed rates and things, but a lot of them don't have the revenue management technology to handle that.
Right.
Either
but I mean, it makes me laugh that this part of the industry, this manual wholesaler, this specific type of rate, especially after the years of companies like Tarico blurring the lines on rates and where they get distributed to.
I'll tell you what, though, Ed.
Yeah.
At least in my experience from the folks I'm talking to, most companies get that, and there's a lot of other factors that play into it that they're working around. We were having this discussion. I can say this because it's long enough ago that everybody who was there at the time is gone. But in my leading days, get your bingo card out. In my leading days, I got into a rather healthy discussion, we'll call it, with the person who was responsible for sales in one of our regions, because they had salespeople doing stupid deals with really important customers. And don't get me started on that thing.
Yeah.
That were, tour operators and the like, where I'm like, you have a salesperson dedicated to this account, right? That produces 1/10 of the revenue of the smallest OTA that we're trying to negotiate a parity agreement with. This is asinine, right? They're doing special deals with these guys, putting us out of parity and all this kind of stuff, and jeopardizing, hundreds of millions of dollars in hotel revenue for, $1 million account. And I'm like, this is idiotic, right? Completely idiotic. And by the time I left leading, people got it and were definitely thinking about it a very different way. And when I talk to folks at Marriott, when I talk to folks at Starwood, when I talk to folks at Hilton and Hyatt and the like, they all get this. They have some. Here's where this gets complicated, right? Is if you have an existing sales force who have all these relationships and have managed them a certain way for a long time and the like, are you going to turn around and fire 50 salespeople tomorrow when they probably provide value to the organization in a lot of different ways to say, we're just going to manage it like a central contract like we did with an OTA and be done with it? And that's where it gets a little.
Yeah, no, I get that it's not an easy it's not an easy scenario, but listen, if it was easy, we wouldn't be talking about it.
But this is absolutely rampant within the industry. Amoma has just been
allegedly
been
Well, they're the first one to be called out for it. Whether they did it or not is beside the point.
Others have been called out.
Called out legally.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. The best example of this, though, and which actually was the genesis of all of the resale price maintenance, price fixing, rate parity stuff in Europe, was Dorian Harris at StOnge. And
I remember that, yeah.
Dorian Harris at StOnge, whose business model was to take net rates that were only supposed to be in packages or sold as a group, everything like that, violate that clause and undercut the retail pricing. That was StOnge's business model. He ran to the British Competition Authority, and they went, oh my God, and basically accused the hotels of colluding with the OTAs. It's like, no, last I checked, they don't really work that well together. Yeah, but basically did that, got that, and that has now gone and rolled. So the whole undermining of rate parity, right, of the hotel to be able to say, we are giving you a net rate, right, because of the model, you're the merchant of record, which is great. That does some very good things for us. And because you get that, you cannot say, and the retail price needs to be X. You gave them that rate,
and so
they are then free to do whatever they like.
Another piece of advice I had given was taking all their wholesale contracts off of net rate and actually giving them a bar and a sliding commission structure.
But if they're the the merchant of record sort of thing, you've got to give them some sort of rate, and unless you're synchronizing,
you can go commission only. You can go commission only, and
but you still have to give them some sort of rate that they can sell. They're the merchant of record, and they got to send you the money, right? It depends on where the thing's getting.
Yeah, that's bar.
Okay, I actually have a question of something I did years and years ago as a GM that I'm wondering whether it comes to play into this conversation a little bit. I had with Wagonlit, we had a high demand down the Keys at the time. And they were wanting to renegotiate what they had as blocked inventory and so forth. And I said, the only way that you're going to get control over that is you pre-purchase it, period, flat. Buy all the rooms. If you buy all the rooms, it's your inventory to do with what it is you want. But I'm not going to guarantee, because you always overbook on wholesale anyway, that you're going to get these guaranteed block rooms. And then, of course, the circumstances of why it was in high demand shifted, and they owned it, and they said, hey, we don't want these rooms anymore. It's like, it's your rooms. So,
Right.
But
and they said, well, we're going to lower whatever price you want. So you can sell them whatever you want to. They're your rooms. And they did. They ended up selling well below what our bar was for the hotel at the time. But the idea of it was kind of similar to what you're talking to, Tim. Being merchant of record is that you have the access to a negotiated rate for inventory. You still don't own the inventory.
You're on the hook for the inventory.
well, it depends. It depends.
It depends.
It depends on contract, right?
Originally, I look at the old model of Pleasant Hawaiian Holidays, right? They were always, yes, block space that, negotiate these deals with the hoteliers and say, hi, guess what? Next year's rates are going to be the same as this year's. And hotelier go, no, they've been the same for 5 years. And they go, oh, we're going to take our block of rooms and our, tens of thousands of dollars and all this prepaid stuff, and we're going to move it across the street. And the hotel would kind of hate it and go through.
Right.
What happened, the big change was our friends Dave Littman and Bob Diener, when they did Hotel Reservation Network,
baby.
Legally trained guys wound up doing a very simple thing. They started erasing clauses out of the contracts, and the hotels either didn't notice or didn't care. So some of them were A, inventory risk, B, prepayment, C, price, the resale price, or the inability to resell the room. All these things got erased, and the hotels, in many cases, especially post 9/11, they could care less. You're sending me volume, we don't care. And that's now what's happened with all these things where they had to be prepaid. I mean, it was crazy. When I was with Mark, I think the statute of limitation is probably over on it. They had a policy of prepaying the hotels in Mexico for the winter business in the fall. In November, your lowest month for cash flow, right? The worst, you don't want to pay anybody in November because you got nothing. They would prepay all of Mexico. And at that point, we're doing, a million passengers a year into Mexico. This is a lot of money. I changed those deals and basically told the hoteliers, we aren't gonna prepay this anymore. And I mean, the organization freaked out. You can't do that. We will lose all of our rates. No, we didn't. We didn't go up a penny or a peso on any one of these rates, and we saved $17 million in cash flow. Done. So the lack of sophistication, but then the other side of that at Mark Travel, and again, we're doing millions and millions of room nights. You would get groups, and I'll call them out, Starwood, just freaking idiots. They were letting all these wholesalers, and most of those people were no longer with the organization, thank God, because they were morons. They let all these wholesalers go and set rates wherever, undercut their retail pricing, and we were the Boy Scouts. We abided by our agreements, we did everything right, but boy, we monitored the hell out of what everybody else was doing, and we'd basically go to Saar and go, guess what? They're doing it, we're going to do it. Oh, you can't do it. No, you're letting them do it. They're violating their agreements because we have some terms here. We have some most favored nation stuff. And it's ugly. And they would not enforce this stuff at the high corporate leisure sales levels. I mean, just crazy. So it's endemic with the business. And every time business turns down,
well, I think
people get real loosey-goosey, and then when business is good,
the real interesting thing here is the new part of the game is how meta is being used. And listen, like, the challenge that I look at in this whole thing is it's unnaturally drawing the consumer to a rate that is not bookable. Like, that's... And if I was the hotel, I'd agree with them. But I also immediately asked them, because in this case, they're not a Marriott. They're not this giant organization. They're a single proprietorship. Like, they have a lot more control than a normal hotel does. I was like, just cancel all your contracts with the wholesalers.
Right.
Like,
well, they have to figure out which wholesaler it's going through, right?
Well,
because it's like hanging on people.
And that's the funny thing. I asked, I said, like, have you been able to identify? And they said, well, this is just the big one we're going after. We actually have a strong feeling that others are actually doing this under the guise of sites that aren't real businesses. Like, but that's crazy.
And that's it. You have to go to amoma, or allegedly amoma, or any other. I could name a dozen of these guys who do this.
Yep.
Well,
you go
and
out
I think
and you have to book a one-night stay or whatever you can do to
Yep.
do it, and then you figure out where to come from, and
Yep.
that gets expensive. And
Right.
we wound up doing that at Mark Trail. We found groups in. Actually, we found an organization. Mark International had an inbound operator, right? That was basically working with travel agencies and wholesalers internationally. They had guys who, it wasn't Mark International, but they weren't really enforcing it. Their wholesalers were then selling it to the retailers, and it was supposed to be a bundled rate. It was really good, had to be sold with they're just selling it off the shelf. So this meta aspect, the difference is it's now B2C meta. Before it was B2B meta and all the travel agents wholesalers. So
where it is going to be weird though is, and again, not a lawyer, is if whomever provided the inventory to the alleged person here, right? If they bought the inventory, right? The law on whether or not that can be resold is really not clear. Like there's clear things in this world that if you
are they buying the inventory, or are they just?
They generally aren't.
They're blocking.
That's the question, right?
If they're not
who
owns
the inventory,
right?
If they're not buying the inventory, Westgate's going to be in really good shape here.
Yep.
If they are buying the inventory, that's going to be a tough sell because if you own the room,
I agree.
You're on the hook for the room, and you want to sell it for less than you paid for it. That's stupid, but not illegal.
Right.
Well, right? But it's not. Yeah. Well, but and tour operators will do that very often. Of course
they will.
If you have inventory risk on flights, and all of a sudden you will sell that room. Now you don't really see that bundled thing anywhere, but that's okay. Right? That isn't hurting the retail pricing structure of the hotel. So that's
because it's not a naked rate.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's ultimately what this comes back to is. They're taking something that it was never intended to be publicly available. They're making it publicly available, allegedly, right? And again, we can take this away from being amoma because they're certainly not the only ones being accused of this kind of behavior. The allegations generally is that there are people who are taking rates that were never meant to be displayed publicly, unbundling them for whatever they were supposed to be bundled with, and then selling them below, manufacturer suggested retail.
Right.
And if they own the inventory, I don't know that Westgate has a shot here.
That I agree with.
But
I also, in this day, I don't know of anyone who's buying blocks anymore.
Yeah, there are some.
There are some.
But it's very, very isolated and very strategic because selling into blocks. Well, and again, it depends on the sophistication of the hotel.
That's right.
If the hotel are really bad at it, and you just have an open number of rooms. I mean, otherwise it's like playing Tetris, right? If you have a block of 10 rooms a night, you've got to fit I've got a 2-day length of stay here on a Wednesday, Thursday. I've got to fit in because it's 10 room stack. But if it's just kind of this floating, we just count totals and total numbers. You can do all sorts of crap. Right. Another one I'll bring up who did this very effectively, Site 59, who was acquired by Sabre. What did they do? They bundled things with these prices because it had to be sold hypothetically with an air ticket, but the agreement said had to be bundled with another thing. Well, it would be a walking tour or something. The best one was
cup of coffee.
The best one, Ed, down in your neighborhood is Gatorland. Gatorland still there because the breakage was 99%.
Yeah.
Nobody went to Gatorland, but you got Gatorland with your package, and then they would sell under the retail price. And again, Site 59 post 9. People kind of went along with it and didn't scream and yell, and because they were getting.
I'm guessing a lot of these ones, the modern ones that are allegedly doing this practice, are doing it to get to escape velocity. Because it's hard to light up. It's hard to light up a new wholesaler. The cost of customer acquisition is insane.
Right.
So if you don't have endless
marketing budget.
Endless VC money. Sometimes you use less than Savory.
Speaking of
Endless
which,
VC volume and volume, sufficient volume where you really can negotiate, preferential rates.
Speaking
It's
of
tough.
VC volume and so forth, just to throw in a few other article choices because
Dara.
Alice. Went Series B.
Expedia, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, Expedia. Well, okay, one and the same at this point, right?
When Expedia is the majority owner of you, you're Expedia.
You're Expedia. Yeah.
I do think that's going to change, Alice, because we started to Strong Analysis. We've had Alice on the show, Alex, and then now it's like it's a great platform service concept, but now we know it's in the hands of the evil empire.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right?
I just got an interesting update.
OTAs. Hold on one second. OTAs can't grow organically anymore. They can't add more inventory. They cannot add more hotels. They have them all. Their growth has to come from other sources. And so one of the things you guys know, I was in Norway last week. This is what I was in Norway. I was talking to some people about this very thing. And this is a huge challenge in that they're getting deeper and deeper into the value chain, right? The customer value chain on all sides. Trivago owns a PMS, right? A lot of folks don't realize that, right? Booking.com has Booking Suite.
Right. I actually like Trivago's blog, too. They actually give really good marketing advice on
there.
Yeah. But I mean, the reality is, all of these folks are saying, how do we grow as a company?
Expedia has a revenue management system.
Expedia has a revenue management system.
Is pretty good. It's
a free revenue management system.
As long as you make your revenue management.
Well, and the new person they tapped to go in there too. I mean, they tapped probably one of the best people they could have tapped to run that in Vivek.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the new normal, and the folks who should be the most concerned about this, going back to our asset light conversation, are the brands.
Yep. Because here's the question: do you ever need to take the last step?
Right.
Or do you just remove enough of the value proposition? Because I hear time and time again, because I've always asked owners, like, why are you flying that flag? Well, because it was cheap. Well, then why are you flying a flag in the first place? Well, it was because it was the only way I could get financing.
Right.
So here's my question. Like, if that's the primary thing that's pushing owners into this, I kind of have to ask, well, so Expedia, why aren't you partnering up with SunTrust Corporate Finance or one of these big public financiers to come in and cash flow the notes on these properties under the guise that, let's face it, I'm sure if Expedia put up their statistics on what they can do with a consumer and held it up against anything available by any of the brands, they outperform.
Yep.
Well, that's an excellent point. Actually, that's a freaking excellent point.
And by the way, I am going to do something I haven't done in a while. I am
Tim Peter blog post.
I am putting up a blog post a while ago. Expedia comes out swinging, right? OTAs versus brands, and it's all about what do you actually get from these folks? What are you actually buying, and from whom? Right. This is the next battle. This is where we're going to be.
And I got to be honest.
That is what the book direct campaigns are.
Of course.
That's the only battle.
I got to tell you, like, I know where I would put my money. I mean, I'm sorry.
It's not on the brands.
No. I mean, and part of the reason is because the brands are playing. If they see this as a threat, they're playing Expedia's game. Expedia's playing Amazon's game.
That's right.
Like, Expedia is not executing on a strategy to do out Marriott. Expedia is executing on a strategy to take this massive cost of customer acquisition and spread it way across the chain to where someone who's not executing that long tail strategy just doesn't stand a chance. And that's the Amazon game. That's why they can buy. Sorry, go ahead.
No, my thing is their model it isn't software as a service. It's guests as a service. Right? That's what they produce.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I've said all this time that the hotels, like their inventory, that's their product.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and I know a lot of hotels look at the other way because they think they're on the transaction. Like they think they're.
But let me tell you what the one thing that would change, absolutely kill the hotel groups, is still the GDSs require that you can only be represented by a single organization. And I was trying to fight that with Sabre, started in 1990, right? Saying that this is an artificial constraint. You break this up, Sabre could make a lot more money. This is 5 years before I worked for Sabre. You guys could really do some interesting things to create a marketplace here, get competition, and really go. They won't. But all of those, Marriott, it doesn't matter. Marriott, Wyndham, Hilton's, they get all the credit for all the corporate bookings that go through where they don't care. That hotel's located in the same building. It's upstairs from the corporate headquarters, and they give them a corporate rate, which is $30 below the best available, or whatever. There's no reason for Marriott had nothing to do with it, or whoever.
Right. Well,
I think for Alice,
you break that, and all of a sudden the OTAs go whoomp because.
Well, I want to pull something out for a second because this is from a slide from a talk I gave just last week, so this is very top of mind for me, and I want to read a specific quote. Right, I'm not going to share the screen because I can't because there's too much client-specific stuff in here. But Expedia launched Expedia-powered technology, which includes a MICE booking solution, the free Rev Plus management tool, and more. Mm-hmm. Expedia hired a VP of Owner Strategy and Services, which I talk about in that blog post I referenced. They're addressing the in-stay experience. They actually are providing the technology for keyless entry trials to a couple of chains in Europe.
Yeah,
they've got the investment in Alice, and this is an unbelievable quote from Cyril Rank, said, we are working to ensure we can not only provide distribution and new audiences for our partners, but also solve for other challenges they may have. Here's the money line. As we make the shift to strategically focus on needs of evolving business solutions, we are committed to using our resources and technology to create new product offerings that help our partners reach their goals.
Yep.
Right? Expedia is publicly stating, this is the business we're in, folks. Wake up.
Yep.
Yeah, this is the game, man. And it's exactly the Amazon model.
Yeah.
It's precisely the Amazon model.
And that's the funny thing.
Except it's GWS.
Right. And what's hilarious to me is exactly how I said it. The brands are spending tons of money competing for the consumer when Expedia's moved on. Like Expedia is like, nah, we've got that locked. You're not a real threat. We're just going to move into the things that still lead you.
We're going to move into your tech. We're going to move into your tech stack.
Now, I will tell you,
at a time that they're all in really interesting positions. And
now the flip side is right. Let's give some credit where due. Have you seen Marriott's test bed accelerator?
Yep.
No,
this is very cool. This is a thing they did in Europe. They did an accelerator program where they invited a whole bunch of technology companies to basically compete. And what you win from this, what the finalists win, is the ability to implement their technology in a specific property to see if it works and see if they can actually make it work well. So they just awarded this to Reward Technology, which is guest personalized communication. Umbo, which is a device that turns surfaces into interactive interfaces. Hi Jiffy, which is an AI-powered chatbot for the hospitality sector to offer a variety of services using Facebook Messenger. My Brain, this one blows my mind. This is a really strange one. I'm not going to lie. A brain training headset that uses neuroscience to combat stress and anxiety to help individuals relax, offering guests a single stress relief session or a personalized coaching program that could be developed over a series
Rick and Morty just did that in the last episode.
All right. But I mean, so Marriott is taking an interesting approach to this and saying, we're going to cast a wide net, plant 1,000 flowers. Now, A, those flowers have to bloom, and B, they have to decide to invest in the ones that actually are worth investing
in. And they have
in.
to get integrated into 6,000 hotels
well, and I'll be
across
honest,
30 brands with 30.
Right. And so what's the worst? What's the worst thing that happens to a startup?
It gets acquired.
No. The worst thing that happens to a startup is it gets a customer that owns them.
Right.
And
Yep.
so then what ends up
you're absolutely
happening is what started as an innovative approach and innovative concept gets beat to death by forceful customer request, forceful inputs.
Ooh, I like that phrase, forceful customer request.
And so this is the challenge when too small of a company ends up with too big of a customer. And this isn't just centric to hospitality. This is
right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
yeah, you want to instantly like just suck the creativity out of a startup, give it a very high paying behemoth of a company customer, and watch what they spend the next 3, 4, 5 years doing. It's literally custom developing.
Dance, monkey, dance.
That's it. And so what I find, and what I find interesting about all these approaches is, first of all, they hired an incubator company that does nothing but these things. It's their shtick. They do startup competitions as a service. It's PR. I'm just going to put it out there. It's PR.
Well,
and I'll put money today. I'll bet any of you who are willing to take this bet, I will put $100 that none of those European winners will ever get a global rollout with Marriott.
Oh, I'm not going to take that bet or not take that bet. Here's the thing.
I bet they won't get a rollout with other groups outside of Marriott.
But I also bet they won't get a global rollout inside of Marriott either.
Stuart, the bet on the table is $100 and Ed's wrong. You in?
Well, it depends on the source of that. So if we're going to ask Ed whether or not he's wrong, then I would absolutely never bet that. But if we're dealing with facts, then I'll take that bet for sure.
Yeah. No, basically, Stuart, what we were saying is that if you are a startup and your majority owner is a client, that's even worse than having really gotten too much money from a VC.
Yeah, I don't think it's a recipe for long-term success for sure.
No, and so what we're talking about is that Marriott incubator program.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying in it is like, who did in the European one where like the winners were named, I'm willing to put up $100 that not a single one of those winners get a global rollout with Marriott.
Yeah.
And he can't find a taker for the other side of the bet.
Right. And my point here is for a couple of reasons. Not because even Marriott didn't have the intention of doing that. It's because I don't think they recognize what they do to innovation.
Yeah.
Right. You can't take, just like I couldn't go into Marriott and successfully run that company, no one from Marriott could come in here and successfully run my company. And the reason being is we're two very different styles of thought, of risk. And honestly, when you get to the size of a Marriott, all your management team, everyone on your different layers, their job is to optimize reality.
Mm-hmm.
A startup's job is to create reality.
Mm-hmm.
Those are incredibly different mindsets. Like you can't take a CEO of a however many freaking employees they have, it's got to be gigantic, and have that person capable of running a startup.
So you're saying Dara is doomed at Uber?
No, because Uber is billions of dollars.
Uber's market cap is triple that of Expedia.
Right, exactly. If anything, no, I'm talking about true startup, which is who these incubators.
I know. That was too easy. I couldn't.
But a two-person organization requires both people to be able to do everything that needs to be done to run the business.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
Those same people who are willing to do that and have the minds to not have that completely demoralize them and all of the above are not the same people who can run a massive organization. It's a different behavior person.
Right.
Of course.
And so when you look at large organizations like this that don't have a history of innovation, so I don't want to say no large organization could do this because there are definitely innovative large organizations that have realized.
Facebook.
BASF, Lockheed Martin, all of the, name them, right? So I'm not saying that large organizations can't do this. I'm just saying large organizations whose center focus isn't innovation can't do this. Like, they just can't.
Here's where I'm going to throw them a bone. And Ed, I agree with everything you just said, and this isn't one of our typical, I agree with most of what you said, but here's the nuance. Here's where I completely agree with everything you just said, completely and utterly. Where I am willing to give Marriott the benefit of the doubt here on one level only. And notice, I'm not taking the other side of your bet. But where I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt is, do they recognize that? And is this their first dipping their toe in the water to say, we need to do something different, and the best way to do that is to do it at somewhat arm's length? And if they follow through on that, that could be a really healthy and positive thing for them. Will they? I have no idea. Am I willing to take the other side of your bet? Hails to the no.
Again, you have to look at, and I don't want to just pick on Marriott, because actually, quite honestly, I think from a hospitality perspective and as a brand standard perspective, they're one of the only brands that historically have held to their brand standards through the years.
That's
like,
right.
So I mean,
that's very fair.
I don't want anyone here thinking that I'm picking on Marriott. I'm actually picking on large corporations.
You're picking on corporate culture.
Right, corporate culture. Yeah. And I'll guarantee you this is what happened. Someone at Marriott truly wanted to solve for an innovation problem. Yep. So like a large corporation, they probably went to a PricewaterhouseCoopers or, one of these giant life-sucking consultancy
Boston Consulting
firms.
Group, McKinsey.
Right. And said, hey, we want to solve for innovation. And someone at that agency went, sure, it's going to be $300,000. We'll build you a presentation and we'll bring you some ideas. And yep, okay, $300,000. There you go. They got a deck that is full of just, all the normal corporate jargon and written by an MIT graduate or something. Right. And they went, yeah, this makes complete sense.
What somebody I know calls a shelf help book.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
How many other line I've ever heard? I wish I'd come up with it.
Yeah. How many other people have seen this highly customized presentation?
Right.
With anything, with the global search and replace being more than just the name of the organization.
Right. So anyway, and then I'm sure they went, okay, yeah, let's enact that. And the consultancy said, great, we'll source how to do everything for you. That'll be $750,000. We'll take care of it. You'll get great PR, and maybe you'll find something really cool. And Marriott said, yeah, because we want to solve for innovation. But they want to solve for innovation inside of the comfort of a publicly traded corporate culture, spreadsheet environment, and that's not where innovation happens.
Well, the only thing I would say is it's good for Marriott because they may, there are lots of little companies who have really good innovative ideas and they can't get the funding, they can't do the thing to kind of pull it together, right? So I think they may be able to come up with a few of those where they are just like, hey, the exit of that organization will be getting hired by Marriott and becoming an employee or something like that, right? And having some little role, and we're going to handle this little module. So from that perspective, that's good for Marriott. Not good for the startups.
So Marriott,
bad for
if I was Marriott and I was looking at accepting who I am, but wanting something different, I would look at companies that successfully became innovative after being big. And a lot of them have taken an approach of lighting up a skunkworks division.
Unfortunately, that only works for a time. This is something I do a ton of work on.
Okay, I'd love to hear this.
This is where that becomes, where you have to be very careful with that. You can do that. But where you have to be very careful with that is you get into an old culture, new culture conflict of the cool kids get to work over here and everybody over here is dead weight. So it's better if there's a way to cycle people through and the like. It's not that you should start with a skunkworks. You absolutely should start with a skunkworks, but you want to open that up and integrate it within the organization as quickly as possible. Usually the ones who do it well because they're forced to. They do it well because their back is at the wall, they're being shoved into the ocean kind of thing, and they burned the boats long ago. Like, that's what actually changes it. but it is absolutely a culture change. And where I'm going to give Marriott a lot of credit on this one, I agree with everything you said, but where I'm willing to give them credit, willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, is the first step is admitting you have a problem.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Yeah, that's why my hat's off to Marriott on this one, because I feel like they know who they are and they know their limitations, and it would have been easy for them to create the innovation division internally and try to solve the problem, and they knew it was going to fail to do that. So I think reaching outwards to do this, their long-term goal may be to create an innovation division, but they want to find the right people to do that.
Yeah.
Mopping up these small guys that
now
like you
the
said,
other thing they could do is in accepting who they are is try to understand like the unnecessary barriers they've created to innovation.
That's right.
I mean, because listen, they don't even have to go outward for that. They can just ask their hotels, because if you walk up to a hotel, that hotel is exactly aware of where the project will die. Why? Because they bring every project that they really like to whoever it is, and they know exactly what will kill it. So, I mean, and they may have already done this, and maybe this is the first step, and I'm not picking on Marriott, I'm picking on large corporate culture.
Right.
Like, because I'm so anti-large corporate culture. I've always been like, I just can't stand it. But I will say, if they really wanted to speed their innovation, they'd need to be willing to drop the barriers to entry for innovation to happen inside of their world.
Oh, yeah.
Even if that's a collection of hotels that they do that with as a test bed, like whatever it is, like dropping barrier to entry,
that's right,
would pay off better for them in the long run, because it'd be less investment on their side, less risk on their side. Most startups would be willing to go through whatever the test bed brand is to see if they can make something work for the Marriott brand without any real investment from Marriott. They would just need to be willing to take one of their smaller brands as a test bed.
Loft. I mean, that's what Starwood did with a loft.
Yeah,
right. But the problem for Marriott, and again, not to pick on Marriott, but is that a loft tech stack is pretty foreign from the tech stack for all the full and the renaissances and going down the courtyards and all that. That's where it starts getting tough. If the organization has a very flexible modern tech stack, you can start, this thing kind of works out pretty well. But there are a lot of really
but even if you create that as this is the reality, because here's the thing. If you let a Saar have access to Marsha,
yeah, that's true.
Saar would fix a lot of Marsha's problems.
Right. That's
right. I was fortunate. Starwood allowed me to go in and fix a lot of their problems. They actually really enjoyed trying to stump me. They would bring me stuff. They would let me take a crack at it. And they would just tell me, this is reality. Budget can't be above this. Otherwise, it needs too big of a sign off. You can't access this because that's proprietary. These are the problems. Can you make something happen? And I got to tell you, like, I created a lot of cool stuff for Starwood, like a lot of really cool stuff that lived completely within the restrictions of their reality, but made huge impact to every hotel's ability to be competitive in their market.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So most of us, go ahead.
Go ahead, Lauren.
No, I wanted to ask a quick question in comparison of three things, because we've all had big corporate experience, and we've done and seen. Well, you had to deal with big corporates, but in the world of corporate, there's choices that are made when you have a project. One is the early adoption of people's engagement through the entire process, which of course is like a tractor pull. You get these, it just starts slowing down as more and more people get their opinions associated with it, and it just gets stuck in the mud if they're not invested and what have you. Then the other is to surprise them. Walk into a C-level room and go, ta-da, we've been building this, here it is, and then get everybody freaked out that they didn't know about it. And then the third is to absolve everybody of any recourse of any negativity on their side and say, we're going to be building this project. We need your viable input, but you're not held culpable for any of the results generated from this thing. Any success metric out of any of those three? Because I've seen all three fail. I've seen all three work. I mean, is there any win-lose out of any of those that you can never see saying, hey, if I had the choice of three paths, this is the one I'd probably try first? because it's an everyday life.
Boy, it's the culture.
Yeah, this is a culture thing, right? Here's the reality. You know, I've spent the last 2 years doing a ton of digital transformation projects with a bunch of companies, most of them outside the hospitality industry, and many of them are global 500. Like, these are big folks, right? And the reality is, Uber is not doing a digital transformation project. Google is not doing a digital transformation project. Expedia is not doing a digital transformation project.
Well, they did. They spent
No. This is a really key point. There's a really key point. They changed some platform, but they didn't rethink, because digital transformation is not digital transformation.
It's strategy. It's strategy.
Business transformation.
Right.
Culture transformation based on the fact that we now live in a digital world.
Right.
And so the way you make it work, Lauren, from the perspective that you just talked about, is you need to think about, do you create a culture that enables people to address the needs of customers in whatever is the most effective, efficient way to get there, right? That understands the reality that, you know, every single human being on the planet is walking around with one of these in their pocket. And are we actually enabling the customer to accomplish what they're trying to do in their journey most effectively? That's really, really freaking hard, right? And you can start with a skunkworks to get some pilots and things along those lines, but at a certain point it needs to be owned by leadership to say, this is who we are, this is the world in which we live, this is the environment that we're going to operate in, because if we don't, we're going to die. And the companies that have done that well get that, and the companies that have struggled are the ones who are like, well, we'll spin up another skunkworks. We'll spin up another skunkworks. We'll invest in this little thing over here, but we'll keep it at arm's length. And those
it's a shell game,
fail again and again and again.
And I agree wholeheartedly, and it's actually funny. I think there's just not a lot of work being done on defining who you really are.
That's right.
And I think a lot of that has to do with because of what they find as they do that discovery.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
Right.
And I think it's tied to being public company. And I'm not talking Marriott now.
No.
I'm talking when you take these older, large companies and they set off to like try and deal with the fact that Google exists or whatever's in their neighborhood that's screwing them up.
Right.
One of the first problems I'm sure comes up is they have tons of smart people working for them. So someone must go, well, we need to set like a vision. Like, what are we? What are we going to do? Great. Let's do a project to understand what's right about what we are today. Okay. And then, all right, what do we want to change? And that's when I think the buck stops a lot on public companies, because you can't release that information to shareholders.
That's right.
Like, you can't say to shareholders, oh,
we're screwed.
Well,
so the reality is our architecture is a huge limiting factor in our ability to grow.
That was Expedia's point.
They got beat up.
And they still haven't really recovered. I mean, they've done very well, but they still haven't really recovered from.
And that's the thing. It has to take a business and a core set of people who are willing to go through the beatings. Look at how poorly Facebook did in its initial IPO in the initial year and a half.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. They were the devil on Wall Street. But here's what's funny. Of all the social IPOs, they were the only ones who legitimately were building a quality business. That's why Snapchat is struggling. That's why Twitter is struggling. And honestly, I think it's why LinkedIn is now owned by Microsoft. So the bot, and then look at Amazon. Like, Amazon's another one who's come out, not been afraid to tell the world, like, listen, someone will give us money because we're building something great long term. It doesn't match the metrics.
I'm going to ask you all a question. And I'm going to start with Stuart, because Stuart can never get a word in edgewise. He's the most polite one of us.
I just like to watch and listen.
But
Stuart is saving his energy for his podcast, which follows, right?
No, but we can pick off some of these engagements. one of the questions, Ed, everything you said is exactly right. One of the questions that really grinds things to a halt often, or starts the most painful discussions that you have to have with some of these organizations, and you'll be shocked how often this causes a problem. Stuart, who's your customer?
It's a great question. We see our customer as our client's consumer. That's who we see our customer as, right. Which is different than most agencies.
It's funny because we see it the same way. Right. Our customer is the traveler. We handle it with that care.
Right. Right.
And that's who it should be. If you ask the major hotel groups,
if you're a marketplace, right? The customer, you are a two-sided market. You have two different customers, but you have to understand where the priority is here. Like this is you'd be amazed. I go into companies all the time, and you'll get the head of sales. You know, the head of marketing says the customer is the consumer. The head of sales says the customer is the channel. The head of whatever, says the customer is whatever. The chief financial officer says the customer is the shareholder. And they wonder why they can't get out of their way. I'm not suggesting the answer has to be only one of those by any stretch. But if you can't come to clarity over when these things conflict, who wins?
Right. What's the hierarchy?
Right. Google knows who its customer is. Uber knows who its customer is. Priceline knows who its customer is. Amazon sure as shit knows who its customer is, right? And I just swore on the air, which I never do.
But hey, almost every episode you do. You just don't notice it, I guess.
But the reality is they're very clear on who their customer is. And if you get that right, a lot of the other stuff doesn't immediately fall away, but you begin to get some clarity around, to your question, Lauren, I now know what I need to do next because I'm putting that customer at the center of this and saying, okay, what's the right thing to do for the customer and what are some possible ways to get there?
So I spoke last week on a panel that I created for Visit Florida, and I just decided to just do something that I knew would be incredibly hard, which was, how does innovation happen? So I brought in some people in positions that I thought the audience would relate to that I actually think have gone through some pretty innovative stuff. One was Scott from Visit Myrtle Beach, who is going through his second recreation of Myrtle Beach's business model. And then Susan Keaveney from the Shores in Daytona, who is an independent boutique hotel with all the realities that come with that. Changes of ownership, changes of management companies, changing market, like everything. The two of them have just gone through pain. Like, I've known them now both long enough. They go through pain, but they go through pain because they believe in the vision that they need to innovate. They want to innovate. And we spent weeks trying to figure out how to position a thought process to the audience, who was an audience of DMOs, hotels, agencies, and attractions. So we actually got it down to a point where one of the key topics we talked about was, I put it in an analogy of building your compass. What are you? Why are you? Why are you doing this, and what can you control? Before you set off on anything, those answers need to exist, or you will never know if you're on the right path.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Well, and then be able to measure it too.
Hence a compass. That's why I use the analogy of a compass.
By the way, guys, I just realized the time.
You're 30 minutes over your normal time?
No. I knew I would be today, but unfortunately I'm 34 minutes over my normal time. And the 30 I can spare. The 4 is where we start to get squishy.
Squishy. That's a technical term, squishy. Schedule squishy term for it. Well, Mr. Tim,
this is a fun conversation. I could do this all day. We have like 15,000 topics we never even touched. Just going to go into the notes list. Next week.
Yeah, we'll just throw them into next week. But Mr. Tim, since you are departing with us, what if people want to find out more about you or learn about what you are adamantly passionate about, where do they need to find you?
I'm at rockcheetah.com. No, they can find me at timpeter.com or on Twitter using the handle @TCPeter.
Thank you very much, and thank you for taking the time with us. It was,
No,
it
it was
was
a
great
pleasure,
talking
Tim.
with Saar. Yeah,
See you, Tim.
always.
See you guys soon, and Stuart, look for an email very shortly.
Okay, great. Hey, if you talk to your buddy Reggie Fils-Aimé, tell him I need a Super Nintendo Classic because I could not get a pre-order. So
that's my buddy.
Oh, is that that's yours, Robert?
That's
okay,
Robert.
I think that was Tim. Okay.
Robert's the one with the gray hair. I'm the one with the no hair.
Robert has the perfect hair.
All right, gents, have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you very much. But actually, it was a lot of fun. And Saar, again, Ed, thank you so much for bringing Saar to us. And I know he didn't have the chance to, on the first meeting, he went over and he tore his meniscus or something. Like, so we were talking about the fact that we're the, you said we're the Tanya Harding of hosts.
Of web shows, yeah. Two guest hosts in a row have a mysterious knee injury.
Yeah. It's like Madden Curse.
Yeah, it is like the Madden Curse. You get on the show, you break your knee or hurt your knee or something.
Well, I just this morning I ran for the first time in over 2 months because I tore my ankle up during, and one of you guys witnessed this.
I did see that
at High Tech. So just for the first time, I was able to run this morning. So
yeah, but the guy
the show's fault.
The guy who got him had a tire iron, and you should have seen what Stuart did to the guy after he got his ankle. I mean, the guy.
So
was
that's
just
actually instantly. That's how you know it wasn't Lauren or I. Because we're the only two members of this show that weren't at High Tech.
Only two that were at High Tech for. Hey, quick question while I have you, Mr. Ed, is Uber, new CEO, do you think there's still life in the beast, or is it just
best possible choice they could have made?
Yeah,
that is a board who did some soul searching on what the problems are and then went and looked for companies that walk the same lines.
Well, but he was their third choice too, and he was the compromise choice. So they weren't all, but they finally got on the same page.
I think of the three named choices, he was
absolutely
really the only one they should have chosen.
Right,
because I'm sorry, like he is perfect. What's funny is I'm more shocked he took it than I am that they asked him. Because
but he's got a big IPO payout, and he already said 18 to. He already set a time frame for it on day one.
Well, yeah, because here's the thing: even if it goes mildly okay, he's now a multi-billionaire.
Yeah.
Okay, and let's face it. I'm sure Dara looked at this as this was his last job.
Yeah.
I mean, because he's already worth a crap ton of money, and
he already gave up probably a $250 million of shares at Microsoft or at Expedia, right?
Right.
But yeah,
so, I think they could not have made a better choice for themselves. I'm excited to see Dara put in a bit of a moral compass. I mean, as much of a moral compass as you put in a company to get them back on track. And I can't wait to see what he does from a competitive landscape because I got to be honest with you, of all the companies in our space, I always have thought that Expedia is the most interesting. Like really have, because there's so many places they could have made really bad decisions, and where they made somewhat bad decisions, they've recovered and they've pivoted. They've really done interesting stuff, but they also have an amazing culture. If you know anyone who works there or has worked there for a long time, they're incredibly happy, but they're also incredibly smart. They're some of the best people in our space. And
that came out of Microsoft, that Microsoft culture kind of started that off, and I think Rich and Eric did a really and everybody's kind of forgotten about them, but Dara coming in from kind of being Diller's deal guy, which when that first happened was like, oh, this could be this could get weird, and boy, he really took that company and he shaped it. I mean, he's the guy who I think and Diller does own a huge portion of that share along with Malone at Liberty, but with that they said we're okay with it to go invest in this platform, and this is what needs to be done. We're going to take the lumps on the street and go, and he made it happen. So
rather than just the obvious cultural change that we focus, what do you think he's really going to try to do to make that facilitated change? I mean, obviously there's a way of gutting the community and changing who has been leading it down the bad path, but from a business value proposition, what is he going to focus on first?
Oh, he's got to hire like a dozen key executives those positions are vacant.
Yep.
I mean, and I think he will be able to, but boy, that process of trying to get up to speed. And then you look at Lyft. Lyft has had a little bit of a lift. They just entered 32 states or something, which I didn't realize they were that limited. But
first half first half of the year they did more rides than they did all of last year. I mean, they're accelerating, and he's going to have to fix Uber's approach to partnering, which again, Dara did an amazing job with that at Expedia. Because before his time, Expedia was not a very good partner to anyone. And now they're probably one of the easiest mega players in our space to partner with. You can partner with them like that. You can go to a URL and partner with them. Which is, again, so I mean, in those areas, like, I think he's going to be very strong. He's got to fix that part of their culture. What I'm concerned for him on is, unlike, so Expedia wasn't a dumpster fire. And I mean, Uber is a dumpster fire. Expedia was a really good company when he took the reins. It was already positioned as one of the more powerful companies, like, without being a disaster. But Uber is a dumpster fire. Like, he's going to be dealing with, well, first day bribery probe. And that bribery probe, I guarantee you, is going to show they were bribing people. Like, so, I mean, like, he's hopefully the distractions of the sins of the past don't stop him from being able to strategically move that company forward. And my only concern with him going there is, like you just said, Uber needs an entire executive team. I'm concerned for our industry, because there's some great executives in our industry that have really close ties with Dara. And I'm sure are on a list of options. We may lose some of the best people.
He's going to make
vision of travel.
He needs strategically to change. I mean, Uber is kind of this amazing logistics company, right? I mean, that is their business. But I think he's going to figure out, okay, logistics and AI and all this stuff is going to kind of get commoditized. How do you separate that out as the hospitality end, which is kind of the Airbnb thinking on it? So I think he's going to try to figure that out, like the whole lifestyle experience. What do people want? How do we expand this out? And I really think, and actually one of the topics on here was T-News and Michelle McDonald had a little. I should put up the link, but I won't be gratuitous like Tim does with his stuff. But I mean, that the thing is, getting the right kind of car and the right kind of driver to drive your kids to school, or to drive you cross country, who can tell you stuff, or whatever it may be. You can do some really, really interesting stuff of matching the passengers to the driver and the experience and the type of vehicle. And you can start getting premiums on that stuff too, where you go, hey, you just don't have to pay this driver this. I want that driver because he's better. You can do amazing things. And I think Dara will head that direction. The other thing that really worries me, that $69 billion valuation. That's sustaining that and keeping all the shareholders who want IPO and how that go. That's going to be tough.
Like I said, it's a
number
dumpster fire.
And the third one is making sure that none of these drivers are considered to be employees, or that something becomes this kind of in the U.S. You're either a W-2, you're either a 1099 or a W-2. Well, these Uber guys are somewhere in the middle, and to legislate that is not good for Uber. So,
he's got a lot to navigate from a business perspective, but I think before he even gets there, he's got to turn the tide of public opinion. They have a PR nightmare. I mean, their biggest challenges are not the business. I mean, the culture has caused the PR nightmare, but I think he can fix that given his record at Expedia. He's got to turn around everyone that's talking about Uber from a negative to a positive, because Lyft's increase over this past 12 months hasn't been because they've been innovating. It's been because people are leaving Uber and switching to Lyft because of the PR nightmare that they have.
But Dara's also been outrageously intelligent. And again, I don't know if he's getting help or this is just his innate sense. He's reached out to Travis, right? The picture of the Uber thing, got his arm around Travis, and Ariana Huffington on the other side, who would probably, it didn't look like he was keeping them separate, but he's embracing those guys.
Maybe he's the buffer between them. I don't
know. No, but he's embracing Travis and going, hey, he built a great, and not demonizing him, which would be the easy. Immel probably would have come in, or Meg Whitman, and just gone, this guy is the devil, right? Which is easy to do. We're new, turn the page. But then And then the other one is
GM, old GM. I mean, that's corporate.
That's
large
right.
corporate America 101, right?
Yeah, and then the other one is Kara Swisher from Recode, who has deep. She's the Maggie Haberman, who's with the New York Times, who's inside the White House, right? Unbelievable access to the stuff. Kara Swisher has that with Uber and has all the dirt and all that. So his first tweet was something about Kara Swisher. So he's reaching out to her too, right? To go, okay, let's go make it, which is genius. I mean, that's what he needs to do. So day one, he's making it go. So, but that's a hell of a job. I don't know. That is not an easy position, but I think
the payouts could be astronomical.
Oh yeah, and I don't even know if he's doing it just for the. Who made the quote? It was I think it was somebody on Recode's podcast said Uber is one of the top 3 most important companies in the world, which I thought was kind of a outlandish statement, but it probably could be.
Yeah.
Right. So who knows? We'll see.
I now change my view of them not existing in the future, though.
Yeah.
Off this choice.
Yeah, because you were a hater. It wasn't even you were a
I think when I saw his name, I was like, "Holy crap!" Like, wow.
If he thinks he can do something with this,
I think he can.
I'm okay. I believe him. Yeah.
So, all right, gents. I don't mean to cut short. It's great seeing you all, but I have a call I have to get ready for.
Let's just say we've been doing this for 2 hours and 15 minutes ish there.
All right.
But Mr. Ed, before you run, if people want to know more about you, where do they find you?
Flip.to or on social media, Edward StOnge.
Excellent. And Mr. Robert, where people can find you?
Well, timpeter.com. Oh, no. rockcheetah.com or at Robert K. Cole.
Excellent. And Mr. Stuart Butler, sir, where can they find you and know about your notoriously excellent podcast?
You can get us at Fuel Travel. The podcast is fueltravel.com/podcast. And then you can hear me, I think next week I'm going to be on Glenn Hausman's podcast, the No Vacancy podcast as well.
Okay. Excellent. I would definitely
job of an interview there.
Excellent.
And Lauren,
hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live for all the live shows, and eventually a newer than looking website than the Lore Ipsum that seems to be floating around out there. I'm updating it slowly. The Painter's House again.
My website's going to be completely HTTPS, hopefully over the weekend. So
everyone should be.
Everyone should be. I've been kind of slow.
It's good that you're catching up with that. Yes. Anyway, gentlemen, thank you so very much. And until next show, 109. Till then, you all have a great week. Bye now. Thank you.
Hey guys. Bye.
And Ed didn't kill us. He actually clicked the right button.